Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for coming to our Majlis today. We had one week when we didn't have it, but we are back, and we are back with Martin. And this well, the Majlis altogether is quite unusual, but this will be even more unusual than usual, because Martin and I met on LinkedIn about a month ago or a bit more, and Martin is a historian of South Italian Baroque art, but working in Dubai. He is also teaching now Islamic art history, and he will explain to us how he get into this project. He will talk us about, and I found it always very exciting how many different ways we can get into the field, and we can do research in the field, and yes, this will be a stellar example of it. I switch off my microphone, and Martin, it's for you to continue. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Isfan, and yes, and thanks very much for inviting me to give this presentation. I think I need to kind of begin by saying, well, firstly, as you've said, that it's not my this is not my field. My field is in art history, Southern Italian Baroque art. So it's something the topic in many ways is something that's new to me. The aim today is really just to show the short film that we made about the library in Timbuktu, and then really I think it's an opportunity for me perhaps to get some advice or ideas from the audience about possible ways of taking the project forward, or possible collaborations. I can see already that there are some people who know far more about this than I do. So I think the aim really will be just to kind of spread the word a little bit about the Mohamed Tahar Library, and then just to see how we go for kind of any kind of ideas. Obviously, people can also email me if there isn't time to talk about it now, or if people prefer to do it by email or other ways. I think that also Abdoul Wahid Haidara from the library, I think, has joined, although I don't know whether he's having problems with the connection. So that's really good that he's actually joined us from Timbuktu. So I think it might be.
Shall we ask Abdoul Wahid whether he can hear us? Bonsoir Abdoul Wahid, est-ce que vous nous entendez? Oui, il nous entend. Nous ne vous entendons pas parce que le microphone est muet. Mais je vois que vous nous entendez, c'est bien. Bon, we continue.
Okay.
Oui, vous m'entendez bien? Allô?
Parfait, oui, parfaitement. Oui, merci.
Ok, d'accord. Oui. Bon, comme je ne connais pas, il fallait toucher pour que ça marche, quoi.
So perhaps if it may be easier if I just kind of, one of the things I should have mentioned before is that one of the difficulties we had with the film was the language question, that kind of Abdoul Wahid and I have been able to communicate more or less through kind of my bad French, and we've had some people that have helped us do with translations and so on. I think what I'll do is, I know you said, Isfan, about having a kind of intro chat first. It might be better if I just show the slides, and then we can kind of go from there, I think. So Can everybody see the slides okay? Yeah, okay. So so basically the first thing is just a little bit about myself. I teach, so firstly, the art history teaching is a relatively new thing for me. It's something that I've been doing for about 4 years. So I've spent a lot of my time, most of my working life has been teaching English and working as an English teacher and English teacher trainer in quite a lot of different countries around the world. So I actually left the UK when I was 24 years old and have spent the last kind of 35 years traveling in different countries. I always had an interest in art and art history and was fortunate enough to visit quite a lot of majority Muslim countries, see a lot of the famous Islamic cities and buildings. About 10 years ago, I wanted to teach art history. And about 10 years ago, I did a master's degree. And then about 5 years ago, I did a PhD. And then when we moved to Dubai, I got a job teaching art history at Zayed University. So just briefly, so Zayed University in Dubai is a government university. I work for the College of Arts and Creative Enterprises, which is a kind of art school that's part of the bigger university. So in our college, or in College of Arts, we have around 1,000 undergraduate students across the 2 campuses in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So our students are art and design students who follow bachelor's degrees in topics like interior design, graphic design, and so on. So there are 6 of us who teach art history. The students have to have the some compulsory and some elective art history courses to support their studio majors. So we have 2 courses that kind of introduce students to art history from the earliest known art until now in a chronological, as 2 chronological courses. There are kind of issues about what we mean by art and so on within the context of global art, but perhaps that's another discussion. There are also some electives that students can do. I've been teaching history of Islamic art and architecture and history of design. So and as I've said, my background is in Baroque architecture. I've lived in Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, UAE. I've visited many other Muslim countries. In all of that time, unfortunately, I never learned to speak Arabic well enough beyond a kind of basic Cairo taxi driver kind of Arabic. I can read the Arabic alphabet if it's printed and clear. So that's just a little bit about me. So then what I thought I would do is basically kind of talk a little bit very briefly about Timbuktu and the trans-Saharan trade. I realize that quite a few of the people I can see who are on this call will already know far more about this than me. I thought I would include it briefly for 10 minutes for anybody on the call who doesn't know so much about the background to the history of Timbuktu and the historical trans-Sahara trade. Then I'm going to say a little bit about how we made the short film, a little bit more about and then I'll show the film, and then a little bit more about the Mohamed Tahar Library, and then I think the main thing, which is to try to get some perhaps ideas of how this could be followed up. The way that it gets followed up may well turn out to be things that are kind of beyond my research area or knowledge, but it might be something where I would be happy to kind of take part in it, perhaps on a coordinator kind of role if there are others who are interested in these more collaborations. So so Timbuktu is situated along the Niger or Niger River, one of the main rivers of Africa, one of the main river of West Africa that rises in the highlands of what is now Guinea, and then it does a kind of slightly unusual flowing north and then down into the Atlantic by what is now Nigeria. Timbuktu is more or less at the northern part of the Niger River. it's along the Niger Bend, which is, in some ways, the Niger River seems to be, has got some similarities with the more well-known River Nile, in this, and that it was a place where I think independently farming, ceramics, musical instruments, many things kind of developed along the river, and the river allows a kind of fertile strip for farming. And I think there's and I'm sure there are people on the call who know more about this than me. From what I can understand, there's evidence of settlements, farming that go back at least as far back as 500 BCE. Timbuktu is at the point, I think some books I've read talk about where the camel meets the canoe. The idea that Timbuktu is at the point where one of the main trans-Saharan trade routes from the Maghreb joins with the Niger River. And it's also in the Sahel region, which is that kind of transition zone between the Sahara Desert and the tropical and also gold producing areas further south. The trade routes, the arrival of Islam and camel caravans and the introduction of the camel into North Africa, I think facilitated increased importance of the trade routes. Products heading south from the Maghreb down towards West Africa included cloth, glass, salt, and after the colonial times, tobacco. I think the main product trading products, if we can include enslaved humans in that, were gold and enslaved people going north. It was unknown to Europeans until it was known but not visited by Europeans until the late 18th century, although it's mentioned in Arabic sources from quite a long time before that. It also has this, for me, in terms of my interest in architecture, I've never been to Mali. I had a kind of chance to go there about 20 years ago and didn't, and now should have done. I think now it's not possible to go there, or it's hopefully things might change in the future. It has the kind of interesting mud brick architecture. The Sankore Mosque in Timbuktu is very near where the Mohamed Tahar Library is, which I'm going to be talking about in the video. The mosque, I think, has been rebuilt several times. At one point in its kind of heyday, I think in the kind of 14 and 1500s, it is reputed to have had up to 25,000 students and a large number of books and manuscripts there. The final part to this, I know this is kind of very quick, and I know some people on the call will know much more about this than me. Among the many difficulties that I think people have had in Timbuktu and Mali, there was the Tuareg rebellion. The Tuareg people of what is now northern Mali and Niger, and I think parts of Algeria, have had various attempts, I think, over the last several decades or more, of creating their own state. There was one about 10 years ago. There was an uprising in northern Mali against the government, and some of the Tuareg groups had links to a Salafi Islamic group called Ansar Din, who occupied Timbuktu for about 9 months. During that occupation, they burnt one of the libraries of Timbuktu, and they destroyed some of the mausoleums of people revered as holy men by the people of around Timbuktu. And I think, although the libraries of Timbuktu have been researched for quite a long time, and I'm sure there are some people on the call who've been researching this for a long time, I think around the time of the Tuareg rebellion and Al-Qaida, I think that was when the Timbuktu libraries seemed to have come a bit more to the international media attention. There was a National Geographic program made about it and about the saving of the libraries. And Abdoul Wahid, who is on the call here, was one of the people involved in this, where they had to escape, they had to hide the manuscripts and escape from Timbuktu and then return not knowing what they were going to find. I wanted to kind of end this intro part with this. I think rather than reading it out, could you, everybody just read it and just type okay when you've read it? Okay, fine. So, I mean, there have been various, there have been several exhibitions. There was actually an exhibition, I think, at the Art Institute of Chicago with Professor Timothy Insall, I think back in 2013, if I'm not wrong. There was another big exhibition related to art from the Sahel, particularly the Niger Bend area at the Metropolitan Museum about 2 years ago. The book, I mean, I kind of noticed this in the introduction of the book, of the exhibition catalogue, relating to the important heritage of Mali and Niger, but also to the difficulties that the people face there, the desertification, climate crisis, the threats from those people like Ansar ad-Din, and then the kind of tragedy of how the trans-Saharan trade routes, from what I can understand, have also become a kind of a conduit or a trade route for people smuggling, stroke refugees, stroke people moving. Though there's a kind of strange connection with my research in Sicily, in that a lot of the people from West Africa who cross the Sahara to North Africa to get on the boats often try to get on the boats that are going across to Sicily. And I once, a few years ago, I was doing some research in Sicily, and there were some of the people who had just come from the boats were actually there kind of on sleeping on mattresses in the streets, people who just arrived, you know, who'd made that journey and had just arrived in Sicily just a couple of days before. So the second part of this is basically just a little bit about the process of the strange process of making the film. I think lots of things about this project there are quite a lot of strange but lucky coincidences, including what you were saying, Istvan, how we met on LinkedIn. And I can't remember exactly now, for somehow we got talking. I think you sent me something and that you were interested in, and we got talking, and that led to this presentation. About a year ago, I can't remember whether I contacted Abdoul Wahid or he contacted me. We made contact on LinkedIn. The original, he messaged me to say that he was the director of one of the Mali libraries. So the plan was originally the plan was just for him. I thought he would come on Zoom and we would record a Zoom presentation for the students. For my students. That ended up being difficult, but Abdoul Wahid started sending me videos, recordings of himself speaking, and photos and lots of things through WhatsApp. It's just, yeah, I'm gonna, when this is done, I'll send something to Abdoul Wahid trying to explain what's going on, what I'm talking about here. But he was sending me material on WhatsApp. And then I got my brother, who works as a filmmaker in London, I got my brother involved, and I was sending things to my brother, and he put it together into a little film, and we did some edits, and we sent it back to Abdoul Wahid to check he was okay with it. Abdoul Wahid also put me in contact with Muriel Royand, who is a historian or researcher of Arabic texts. And Muriel, at one point, I think she was going to try and join, but no, okay, she hasn't been able to. helped us with the translations into French and English. And there was also a friend of Abdoul Wahid called Sidi Yahya who did a kind of English language voice recording of what Abdoul Wahid was saying. So there are all kinds of strange technical difficulties. So the difficulties of making the film, there was the problems with the internet connection in Mali. There still is this linguistic difficulty. Abdoul Wahid and I have communicated things and become friends and got to know each other, but there are still lots of things that we don't know about each other. Sometimes I didn't want to keep getting the French people who have been helping us to say, can you ask him this? Can you ask him that thing? Can you ask him something else? So we kept it fair mainly about the film. Although we still message each other. There were those linguistic things we had to work with. And then related to that, I think surprisingly, from doing the film, the thing that I found probably the most difficult was actually doing the subtitles. We got somebody to transcribe in French everything Abdoul Wahid was saying. Then using kind of Google Translate and other people to help us, we then translated the whole transcript into English. And then my brother then put all the little bits of the transcript into the subtitles to coincide more or less with what Abdoul Wahid was saying. All of it was a kind of fascinating, unexpected project that ended up with people from Dubai and Mali and France and the UK kind of all working together to make this little film. And I'm hoping now that we can try to kind of raise awareness a bit more about the Mohamed Tahar Library. And so the main aim of the rest of this presentation is just to see if there are any suggestions for things we can do to kind of move it forward. That's probably quite a lot of background. I've got the link to the video. I'm actually wondering, and it depends what you think, Isfan, or what other people think, whether to try to play the video, just to try and play the video through the Zoom thing, which I think would work, or the video is about 9 minutes, or the other way of doing it is to have a kind of 15-minute gap to let people watch it on their own and Zoom and have a short break, 5-minute break. I don't know if anybody's got any preferences, or I hope I'm not complicating it.
I think let's just go through
Okay.
Zoom, because if we break up, yeah, we will have the difficulty of joining back.
Okay.
So let's make, yeah.
Okay. So I'll play the first 10 seconds. I'll play it, and just if you can't hear it, if there's a problem, just let me know in chat.
Depuis la fondation de la bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar jusqu'à aujourd'hui. La bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar a été créée au XVIIe siècle par notre arrière-grand-père au nom de Moulay Ibrahim. Après le décès de Moulay Ibrahim. La bibliothèque a été prise en charge par Sidi Talibna, qui est l'oncle de Mohamed Tahar. Après le décès de Sidi Talibna, Mohamed Tahar a pris le relève. Mohamed Tahar donnait le cours islamique, la traduction du Coran, le hadith, le fiqh sur son étage. Presque, il a enseigné à peu près plus de 200 à 300 élèves. Nous, on a même vu beaucoup de ces élèves à travers, après son décès à Tombouctou, hors de Tombouctou, un peu partout. Après le décès de Mohamed Tahar en 1968, les manuscrits sont restés pendant un bon moment dans des malles en bois et puis en métal. Il y avait beaucoup de manuscrits qui sont dégradés à travers les pluies, à travers les termites. Donc, nous, nos parents qui sont venus n'ont pas touché le manuscrit, seulement ils les conservent comme il les a trouvés. Donc, nous, après, en 73, 75, jusqu'en 80, il y avait eu beaucoup de bibliothèques de manuscrits qui se sont ouvertes ici à Tombouctou. Donc, moi, j'ai vu les écrits sur les manuscrits de Mohamed Tahar de ne pas le vendre et puis de ne pas les donner à quelqu'un, mais quelqu'un peut faire ses études, peut utiliser le manuscrit, seulement de ne pas le vendre. Donc, j'ai dit maintenant, avec tous ces manuscrits-là, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Il faut ouvrir une bibliothèque. C'est avec ça que j'ai décidé en 2003 pour ouvrir la bibliothèque qu'on a nommée Bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar de manuscrits. Après aussi, j'ai créé une association pour protéger les manuscrits de Tombouctou Afromat, qu'on a nommé Afromat. Après la création, j'ai réuni les manuscrits dans les familles un peu partout. Maintenant, il y a la maison de Mohamed Tahar, il faut le faire. Il faut ouvrir la bibliothèque à la même place de Mohamed, dans la maison de Mohamed Tahar. Et en 2012 aussi, il y avait eu l'occupation de Tombouctou. Tombouctou a été occupé par la rébellion Touareg au nord du Mali. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Il faut remettre les manuscrits dans les malles et puis il faut les conserver encore. Donc, on a remis les manuscrits dans les malles, on les a mis dans une chambre un peu non lumineuse, dans une chambre un peu cachée. Et puis nous, on a voyagé, on est parti pour notre sécurité. Au retour en 2013, on a essayé d'ouvrir la bibliothèque encore une deuxième fois. Donc, ça prouve qu'il y a eu beaucoup d'explosions qui ont détruit encore la maison. C'est avec ça que l'UNESCO est venu en aide pour toutes les bibliothèques presque, et puis d'autres aussi mausolées saccagés. C'est là que l'UNESCO nous a aidé encore pour reconstruire la bibliothèque et puis mettre les manuscrits là-dedans. Aujourd'hui, la bibliothèque est vraiment ouverte, mais à Tombouctou, une bibliothèque, c'est quoi? C'est pour faire vivre une bibliothèque, il faut avoir les touristes, il faut avoir le chercheur. Aujourd'hui, les manuscrits sont déposés, les manuscrits sont poussiéreux, ils sont déposés. Il n'y a pas de touristes parce que les touristes ne viennent plus à Tombouctou. Parfois aussi, les chercheurs aussi, ou bien les journalistes qui font les documents viennent, mais aujourd'hui, depuis 2012 jusqu'à aujourd'hui, les manuscrits sont déposés dans les malles, dans les armoires, comme ça. Parmi, dans les manuscrits de la bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar, on trouve beaucoup de matières. Presque toutes les matières sont dans la bibliothèque. On peut trouver un manuscrit de la tradition coranique, un manuscrit soufi. On trouve aussi un manuscrit de la traduction du hadith et aussi la grammaire, jurisprudence, et puis aussi l'astronomie. Presque toutes les matières sont dans la bibliothèque. Et des fatwas aussi, des lettres de réconciliation, des lettres de mariage, des lettres de tout, on les trouve dans la bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar. Aujourd'hui, la bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar, depuis 2012, ça ne fonctionne que petit à petit. Parfois aussi, on trouve des élèves qui ont fini leur étude à l'extérieur. Presque moi, aujourd'hui, j'ai eu la chance à aider beaucoup des élèves à l'extérieur, tels que en France presque. Et aussi, j'ai oublié de vous dire que après 2012, il y a une association, Eva de Vitré-Mirovic, qui est venue aussi en aide à la bibliothèque avec un Kiss Bank où on a récolté à peu près 10 000 euros. C'est avec ça qu'on a renouvelé la bibliothèque et on a payé à peu près quelques matériels. Donc, notre souhait aujourd'hui, c'est de mettre des manuscrits au profit de l'humanité. Parce que le manuscrit, c'est pour l'humanité, ce n'est pas pour une seule famille. Voilà, notre souhait aujourd'hui, c'est de numériser la majorité de nos manuscrits et de le mettre sur Internet pour que le monde entier puisse en bénéficier. Voilà tout ce que je peux vous dire sur la bibliothèque Mohamed Tahar. Donc, après la présentation, Monsieur Martin, je suis à votre disposition pour des questions, s'il y en a, Inch'Allah. Même si c'est en anglais ou bien en arabe, je suis prêt à vous répondre. Merci.
I'll send the link. The link's there on the slides anyway. But I'll put the link in chat at the end. So, and also merci Abdoul Wahid. We'll see whether we can send if people speak. I'm sure there are people here who speak French. Maybe we could try and maybe ask Abdoul Wahid some questions or involve him as well. I feel that I'm kind of talking about him without giving him the chance to say something himself. Just this last part, I think, is probably only going to take about 5 minutes, and then maybe we could just have some discussion. So a little bit. I mean, Abdoul Wahid has already presented something about the library. All of it is new to me. So, as I say, the whole thing came from this slightly strange, perhaps serendipitous meeting through LinkedIn, and how it grew into making this little film, and then other people became interested in it. But the whole of this area is something that's quite new to me. Muriel Royand has done a lot more research on this, and some of the short articles she's published, and she's also visited the library, and that in the Mohamed Tahar Library. So the Mohamed Tahar Library is one of about 30 libraries in Timbuktu. The Mohamed Tahar Library has around 2,200 manuscripts. They are mainly in Arabic, but they're also in some other West African languages. And I think that the 12th century Gregorian calendar. The Institut de Recherche et d'Histoire des Textes in Paris has done, I think from what I can understand, I need to find out more about all of this. They've started an inventory in English and Arabic of the Mohamed Tahar Library. But as far as I know, they've only done 160 out of the 2,200 manuscripts that give the title, pages, I think dates. It appears that dating the manuscripts seems to be quite difficult. There is also, again, if anybody wants to kind of look at this more, there is a link on the Institute's website. So this is just a screenshot, and then I put the link there. They digitized, they did complete digitization of 34 of the manuscripts. I've just put in a few pictures. One or two of these images were ones that we used in the film of images that I thought were interesting and show that the quality of the calligraphy and the you know, of some of the manuscripts that are there. So Abdoul Wahid told me that this is from the Imam Malik kind of jurisdiction, school of Islamic jurisprudence. But Abdoul Wahid told me it's from this, if I understand correctly, from the 16th century. There is also this one, which is a Holy Quran from the 16th century, and it's got, and again, I know that I'm talking to experts here, but I think it's got, this looks like Kufic script, I think, and then there's the Maghrebi or Sahari script, I think, is this one with the kind of quite rounded parts, strokes below. Again, very, I think, very beautiful. Another one that kind of caught my eye is another page from the Holy Quran, which I think, if I've read this correctly, is a Surat al-Anfal. Then just one other one and these are photos that Abdoul Wahid has taken with his mobile phone and sent me. This is from an astronomy treatise which Abdoul Wahid told me was from the 1160 Hijra year. And then there are perhaps the documents that you might expect in any perhaps madrasa, old madrasa library. However, there are also there's another element to it, which is the relating to local history. And again, I'm afraid I can't read this, but Abdoul Wahid told me it's a calligraphy by this particular calligrapher, and it's a kind of legal, that there are legal documents. There are things like business contracts, marriage contracts, fatwa rulings related to kind of, I think, local issues. So there's a whole area of I think that might be a typo. I think I'm not in I think it should be Omar, so not, the P shouldn't be there. Related to history of Timbuktu also. This is the last slide. I mean, some of these things I've got for future projects I know are probably quite obvious ones. And I think a lot of it is basically related to funding, isn't it? So digitization of all of the manuscripts. I need to speak to Muriel about how far they've got with that in Paris, whether they are able to, there's a plan to digitize more, whether they, whether they're gonna or you know, whether it relates to issues with funding and so on. There's also, so there's digitization, there's restoring manuscripts. Again, I don't know how far how much work they've been able to do with that. Both of these things relates generally to funding. There is a current campaign that Abdoul Wahid has sent me, which is for to try and raise some so about €3,000 to do renovation with the library. Another element maybe, if it would reach people who would be interested or would help the library, perhaps more of a website or social media presence. There is also online conferences and events. There is also maybe looking at how to get it out of just a kind of academic, a small group of academics, if that's possible, to a kind of broader audience. So something like production of education materials involving the manuscripts. And I think some of that has actually already been done in some of these projects have already been done with the, I think there was a project in Charleroi in Belgium where that Abdoul Wahid went to, that was related to a kind of educational project for students there. A colleague of mine at Zayed University who teaches graphics and Arabic typesetting and is interested in Arabic calligraphy and fonts, said that he found some of the calligraphy styles that, from what he saw of these images of the manuscripts, very interesting. And he is interested in looking at these not from a point of view of historical records or content, and perhaps looking at things like the paper, the materials that the calligraphers used, and the calligraphy styles. So I think I'll stop there. I mean, it would be very useful, particularly with, you know, the experts that I think we have among us, to if anybody's got any comments, questions or comments or just suggestions.
Thank you very much, Martin. If I understand well, you finished the presentation and
that's right. Yeah,
discussion time. I always stop the recording at this point to make the discussion as free as possible, which I always regret then, because the discussion is very interesting itself. But we will stick to the road. Thank you very much, Martin. Thanks. And well, just one thing before we discuss the actual topic, something which came to my mind, what we can all learn from this is the adventure and risk taking of you in this project and in everything. Well, that if I understand well, you, after 25 years of active work and wandering, you had your MA, and after 30 years you had your PhD.
Yes.
And now you are teaching art history at university. So that's something what is really impressive, and not just impressive, but really a great lesson, because we have mature students very often, and it shows that yes, it's not just for the fun of it that one can do a degree after 30 years of work, but one can actually really enter into the field of research. And also the way that the unusual output of the research, which is so unusual and so important, is also very interesting. That not everything has to be what we produce, publication of books and articles, but a film like this, and just to let people know about values to be discovered and saved and shared is as important than anything else we can do. Yes, I'm very impressed, and thank you, and also well, thanks to everyone who worked on this. I saw Yasmin's hand up. Is Yasmin still here? Her connection was.
Yes, I was having, I was having some trouble, but
so
I wanted.
I end the recording now. Okay.
No, not because of that. I just had some troubles with the internet. But what I wanted to say is that you can look at the website of the British Library, because they have a call every single year to support and finance the saving of endangered archives or archives of minorities or what have you, and help digitize them and things like that. So that might be a useful avenue for you to help your library.